Thank you for joining us, everybody, on this week's Now You Know movie show, where we are reviewing Get Out!
Get Out. Don't you just want to sing that song now?
Yeah. Wow.
The song in the beginning of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's an African, and they're saying, listen to your ancestors, get out.
Yeah.
Really?
Nice little
Bobby
Easter
goes
egg.
deep.
Nice, Bobby.
Bobby does his
Very
research.
cool. Yeah,
I've done my research for this movie.
Wow.
All right.
But anyway, let's get right into the non-spoiler.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is the
zone.
section of the show where if you haven't seen the movie and you're trying to decide whether to see it, we let you know what you should do. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Let's start with you, Brent. What do you think? Was this a thumbs up kind of day?
This is a double thumbs up for me. I don't want to reveal my hand too early here, but I thought this was an awesome movie. We just, we recently did, what was it? It Follows.
Yeah.
And I feel like this movie in a lot of ways, that movie was playing with a lot of like interesting ideas and stuff, but I felt they didn't quite execute them as well as I thought they could have. I feel like this movie, in a similar vein, does that, but does it right.
Yeah.
Like, it hits all the beats. You really are engaged with the characters and really want to follow through to the end. And they play with the format a lot, where there's parts of it that maybe feel like they're going to be predictable, but then Jordan Peele, the director, does a great job of kind of flipping those tropes on their head and representing them in a way that's really interesting. So definitely thumbs up for me. You should definitely watch this, even as I'm not a horror movie guy, and I love this movie. So
Awesome. All right, what do you think, Bobby?
Okay, I loved this movie. I'm going to give it a good score. We'll give the scores at the end. But I would definitely recommend it to a friend because it, like you said, with It Follows, it sort of had me more engaged, and I feel like the social commentary was definitely more relevant. And I feel like watching it, I was a lot more involved in the whole storyline. So I loved it. I would recommend it. Go watch it before you come back and watch the rest of this review. So
Interesting. All right, what do you girls think? Was this kind of movie you'd recommend to a friend?
Well, I'm not a horror movie person at
I
all.
don't think any of us are, actually.
no, I'm not.
No, I mean, it depends on the friend, but I really like the movie because I think that you can depict it, dissect it after you even watch it.
It's a smart horror film.
Yeah, it's really smartly written and directed.
So you can close your eyes during the parts you don't want to see.
Did you close your eyes during the movie?
yeah, I was
little
going to say
bit,
this
yeah.
is that scary.
I couldn't
it
keep
was
my eyes
very
off the movie.
stressful,
It's,
is what it
I would
was.
say it's tense. There's
Yeah,
a lot of tension.
I was-
It's sort of a thriller,
There
I
was
think.
just
definitely.
moments of anxiety, like that it wasn't even happening yet, but that you just couldn't bear to see it if it was going
I
to happen.
thought too, though, just even as a movie, that the acting was superb. I thought that there were a couple actors there I didn't know, and I completely believed every facet of their characterization, and the actors that I did know, I believed them in their roles really, really well. So I thought that the acting itself was excellent. The direction was great. So.
Yeah,
That's a
I
good
would
point.
recommend it.
Yeah, because, normally you go to a horror movie and acting isn't high on the list.
Yeah,
usually
yes.
you're expecting
and usually
kind
the
of...
unknowns, you're kind of like, well, it's a cheap horror movie,
Right.
so what do you expect, you know?
Right.
You're-
And this was a cheap movie. It was a $5 million
Yeah, it was
budget
made on a
movie. So
small
it's
budget.
a typical horror budget movie. But I think Jordan Peele did a great job of creating what he called a social thriller. Like, it's not... I kept calling it a horror movie with people, and I don't really think it is, actually.
No.
Yeah.
I think it depends who you are. I think for us, this is more of like a social thriller.
That's true.
I think if you're maybe, obviously I'm not a black man, so I can't speak to it, but I feel like for some people, they probably watch this and this is
That's
a
true.
legitimate horror movie,
Yeah,
you know?
that's true.
Depending on your perspective, you know?
Definitely.
All right, well, let's take the gloves off, and we're going to give our total review average right here. So you're going to see what we've reviewed it, so you can decide if you want to go see it. I think that's a pretty interesting review number there.
Yeah, I think you're going to want to see it.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out.
All right, so spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the movie, stop right here. Go see it. You're going to like it.
Bye.
And if you've just watched the movie and come back to the video, welcome back.
Let's get into it, yeah?
Let's do this.
All right. So we talked about acting. Let's just talk about this for a second. Daniel Kaluuya, who is playing Chris, he hasn't been in that many things before. I saw him in Black Mirror, an episode of Black Mirror, which he was great in.
Yep.
What else was he in?
He was in Sicario.
Sicario.
Yep.
That was a 2015 film, but really not a lot.
Yeah.
He's kind of an unknown, and I thought was fantastic.
He was awesome. He wasn't over the top at all. Like
Of anything.
He just got it. Like
I believed he was Chris.
totally.
Yeah. He was believable in every aspect of this movie.
Yeah.
And he's another British actor who convincingly plays American. I mean,
of course.
That really tricked me. I didn't even see
I
that
had no idea.
That's
going
like
to
always
set.
the case with amazing actors.
I feel like the interesting thing about him is that he's really, really good at face acting.
Yeah.
And that's very tough.
Yeah.
Like he can do a lot of facial expressions that sort of say more than words themselves,
Absolutely.
I think.
Definitely.
His like sideways kind of glance and like his I don't know what's up face is very.
His eyes.
How do you sit in a
those
chair
eyes,
and then just burst into tears like that?
I know.
without moving your face, really.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
just like incredible.
A lot of actors did that in the movie. Like the woman who played Georgina, she was fantastic. She was able to just carry this face of
that
everything's
was so
fine,
creepy, that whole
and then
thing.
just.
Yeah.
I mean,
Tears.
if you watch the movie and you've seen to the end, I mean, we've come to find out later that she's not actually Georgina; she's the grandmother,
Right.
And that's like to put yourself in like the shoes of a racist old like white woman being like trapped in like a black woman's body. It's just like I can't even imagine where that acting process would begin. And I think she did an amazing job showing that, and really interesting stuff happened throughout the movie.
It's fun when you watch it a second time because you get to see the roles that you first thought were kind of like weird, like for instance the groundskeeper / grandfather.
Yep.
When you see him acting, you're kind of like, why is he acting so weird? But then you're like, because he's the grandfather.
Yeah, he's the
acting like
grandfather.
a white grandfather would. Like, oh, you like my granddaughter Rose? You know, and it's like he pulled it off perfectly.
Yeah, I found that whole thing very interesting. It's very kind of like cutting commentary if you think about it. It's just like we have these black people who are accepted into your community, but only when they assume the role of a white person, like a old white person. Then it's like, oh, we love these black people, and they are conformed to a like white identity.
Yeah, that's.
And
really
I think that really is interesting and speaks to kind of like what we're going through now too. I feel like that's very much the case, you know.
And I think a really interesting point to bring up too is like it's not even the same form of racism that we would think of in the past. It's like they envy. It's envious.
It's
like they want the bodies of.
Usually, when you think of like racism in a movie, you think very overt, like skinhead, Nazi, like Ku Klux Klan or whatever. But this is a very subtle, kind of insidious, weird,
and everyday racism.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt that the Chris character, you could see all the times he encountered a racist comment and how he deflected or how he kind of accepted
you can tell
and
that
this
is something
and
he
he's
obviously
used
has
to it.
to do every
and he's
day.
used to it. And I think that a lot of the comments that the white people made were right on exactly what white people do.
Right, like the Bradley Whitford character be like, I would vote for Obama a third time if I could.
And you hear that so
Why
much.
do you have to say that to him?
Hey, my man.
Yeah, exactly. Like all these kind of like
So weird.
And it's like, I'm sure a lot of people do that and like don't even. It's like racism, but some of it in like a almost like it's hard to describe because it's not like a necessarily malicious. It's just this weird kind of like you're putting this person into a box based on just the way they look.
Yeah.
And like defining them based on that, and like how you talk to them is defined by that one thing,
Jordan Peele said that a lot of he wrote it, and a lot of this came from him and his experiences. Now, didn't he come from a multiracial family?
Yes.
And so I guess that really gives him both sides of the coin. You could really see how white people act, black people act, how they interact together. It was
very interesting.
It was really powerful. I really like the scene going back and watching a second time with the cop. So they're driving into upstate New York. They hit a deer. They call the cops. The cop comes and says, Chris, I need to see your ID. And Chris is like, sure, here you go. And the girlfriend's like, you don't have to do that. On second viewing, I realized why.
She's covering a paper trail.
It wasn't that she was trying to be, white liberal. She didn't want the cop to know who he was because he was going to disappear.
Right.
And
all the other people.
And she made the
realized.
cops feel guilty.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
He
Allison
felt like,
Williams
oh, yeah,
is really
you're right.
good in this movie. I mean, I've seen her in Girls and maybe like a couple smaller roles, and I didn't know she had this gear.
She's
in her.
really good at playing crazy.
When she makes the turn in this movie, like you buy it from her being just like that lovely girlfriend to this just like monster person.
And staying on the topic of that scene, can we talk about the deer? Because that was really interesting.
Yeah.
The fact that
some interesting parallels there.
The parallel between Chris's mother and the deer, and she died in a hit and run. I think it was a shooting or something.
Hit and run,
And so they hit the deer, and immediately you can see that symbolism of like Rose has no empathy for the deer. It's kind of just like, let's just get back in the car.
Well,
but Chris goes and sees the deer.
On second viewing, I think the deer was planted by the brother Jeremy. I think the brother threw the deer into the car, and that was a planned event. Because if you look carefully when the deer's on the ground, the deer's been shot.
Oh,
really?
And so
Okay,
I think that was a planned event, and it was designed so that this would get into Chris's head even more to get the mother.
Yeah, because the mother Allison was Catherine Keener's character. That the mother already knew about Chris's mother's situation.
Right. I mean, they needed 4 or 5 months of relationship to get all of that background on Chris, so that they could find the key points to get at his subconscious to do the whole hypnosis. Right. And so I think I first thought it was just a random accident, just to cause a little, unexpected whatever. But I think that if you watch, it flies at the car like unlike any deer I've ever experienced. And I think that it was designed to do that. And that's and as you guys pointed out, I think when they get back to the house and they're like, we hit a deer. Rose isn't acting like you would act if you.
Well, they said, "How was your drive?" And she said, "Oh, it was great." And I thought, that would not be your first say. You'd say, "Oh my God, we had a deer and my car is broken, and what are we gonna do?" And
then the father compares deer to like vermin. And it reminded me sort of a lot of like if you look at some racist comments people make about certain colored people and comparing them to things like the way that he was talking about the deer. It's just sort of like, I don't know. It kind of gave you that little hint of like, okay, this is how these people see,
things they view as lesser.
Yeah, exactly.
That have no place.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I really think that going back to the girlfriend, her role was key, because if we get a hint too early that she's up to no good, we get onto the plot.
Yeah.
I couldn't get onto the plot because even when you get to the house and something's up, you think, I thought there was something going on with the groundskeeper and Georgina. I thought like, oh, the family's fine, but these two people, there's something, they're hypnotized or they're going to do something
they're plotting to.
Yep.
And is that our whiteness that makes that?
I did not feel that way.
You didn't feel that way?
No.
You were onto the family? Or?
Yeah. Well, I didn't. I thought that the groundskeeper and the Georgina were acting the way that they were because of like the family.
Because they were fear. They had fear.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was coming at it too. But I still didn't really feel like Allison Williams' character, I think Rose is her name.
Yeah.
I wasn't really feeling like she was a part of that, because one thing I really like about this movie is that I feel like for the most part, Chris kind of does everything you think he would do. And whenever you watch a horror movie, you're like, oh, no one would ever do that. Come on, what are we doing here?
Like he made phone calls. He made sure his phone was charged.
He was ready to leave at one point, and even then, Allison Williams was like, okay, let's just go.
Leave.
Let's just leave.
She does a really good job of convincing the viewer that she's not part of this.
Yeah.
She
The
really
writing
does.
was perfect. She played the girlfriend part perfectly. The like, you want to leave without me? Pouty, pouty. And then, oh, you want me to come with you?
Yeah.
Okay, we can go.
Yeah.
Like, I believe that she was with him.
Yeah.
And then even right up until the key moment.
Yeah.
Even then, I wasn't fully convinced. I thought maybe she's hypnotized too.
Yeah. And
she's
she
like,
flipped
I
the
can't find the
switch.
keys. Where are the
Exactly.
keys? Like maybe she's hypnotized to like not be able to find it.
I knew she wasn't hypnotized, but I definitely had like the feeling that could be the case. I got this vibe that she was just so devious that she was just straight out lying to him. And when you saw all the other pictures of all the other victims,
that was
just like, and you got to wonder where are they all?
That's such a good moment.
Yeah.
Flipping through all the pictures, you're like, oh no.
And then Chris knows that she's lying, I think, and it's interesting that he keeps, pretending and saying, "Come on, Rose, give me the keys, give me the keys." I think he almost wanted her to admit. He wanted to see when she'd break.
Maybe.
I don't know, because maybe he secretly believed that she was hypnotized too. Because he loved her, obviously.
See, I felt in that moment he was trying to just play along so that they wouldn't be on to the fact that he was on to them.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I
true.
got out of it.
Yeah.
But you could be right too.
No,
a
that's a
little
great
bit
point.
Both playing into that,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because she keeps up his lie, like, oh, he has to go and help his dog. So you feel like, what? which side is she on? It was just great. They just keep you going up into the last moment of the film.
So I haven't watched a lot of horror movies, and so maybe this is something that's in a lot of the evil or the psychotic characters, but I thought it was amazing the way that they took this person and implanted the brain of the white person in them, but that there was still a part of them still there in there.
In the sunken
The sunken place. Can we talk about the sunken place?
And so, well, anyway,
crazy.
so I liked it that the like Georgina and the groundskeeper and even the man at the party were trying to help in some way, trying to get him to leave.
Right.
Just in the tiniest way that they were able to do that. Now, that might be something that happens in other films that I don't know about, but I just thought that was brilliant.
I've never seen it before. I think that was amazing. The sunken place, everything that the sunken place stood for, it gave me like claustrophobia watching it. That first time he sunk into the, and something interesting, Jordan Peele actually tweeted out, like, we all live in the sunken place. And I thought that was interesting because, you know, as the writer of the movie, that sort of shows like where that's coming from, and like, you know, that sort of watching almost your life from a television, like far away, too far to grasp, too far to take control, and being stuck in this place where you're kind of a zombie almost, and you can't control your own body. I think that's speaking for a lot of our society and how we really can't control a lot of the things that we wish we could.
That's
so I think that's a really, you know, important part of the movie.
I think that was one of the scariest quotes in the movie when she finally, you know, they lowered her voice a bit and she goes, "Sink down."
Oh, that was so creepy.
It was just, you knew it was going to happen, kind of, but I wasn't ready for it. And then just the choice they made to go to an actual him floating in space, like it was great.
It was like
so
a nightmare.
Surreal. Yeah.
And that whole like idea of not being able to be in control of your body, like, is such a horrifying like feeling. And even though I'm not experiencing it, the movie makes it so that I can I empathize with him so much. It's terrifying.
Well, let's talk about terrifying. So after the movie's over, I watched it twice, and both times I thought I would have that typical horror movie, can't go to sleep, but I didn't. And I think it's because I'm white. I think that if I was African American, I would still have it. I would still feel the killer was outside because they are outside, right? I mean, I felt as we were watching most of the movie, I'm comfortable. I'm not in Chris's shoes. I'm seeing all these white people acting horribly, and I'm just like, oh, silly white people.
You're just kind of cringing, like, oh, come on, dude. Like,
and that's the thing, is we just don't know. You know, as like, obviously white people, we don't know what it's like. And I think, like Brent was saying, it's completely different viewing, watching the movie, depending on who you are, like your perspective. And we were talking about yesterday, the end of the movie was the scariest part of the movie, when he finally like kills them all and the police car shows up. And you're like, oh no.
Thought is like, he's done
in any other situation,
movie,
the police come and thank God, and you think nope.
And you think just one little thing that's different about this character is just his race, and then all of a sudden that whole scene plays completely differently.
From that scene on throughout the night afterwards, like you could fall asleep and I could not. I just was so upset about it. I was so angry.
Because that's the first thing we all think.
And that is what's happening.
That one little moment,
because it's real, because that is what's happening in our country and every day. And I just, it just makes me feel sunken. It makes me feel like I have no control and I don't know what to do to remedy the situation or help.
The rapport that Rose has with the cop is what almost all white Americans feel, which is like, I can talk to this guy and I can explain things and he'll listen to me and you know, he's not going to shout at me and blah, blah, blah. And to see that relationship where she can even get him to kowtow to her and just be like, no, that's not what you're going to do, and he doesn't do it, is unique only because of our skin color. If you're black, that conversation does not happen.
That would have been completely different if Chris had refused to give him his license. Completely different.
And it showed that he had learned, there's no playing around here. You have to do exactly what the officer tells you, even if it's ridiculous.
Just in case, you never know, you know?
And so, I mean, white Americans get to view all sorts of things like police forces as these friendly helpers, and African Americans don't. feel that way at all because their experience is usually different.
I love how this movie is able to show all that, and yet being in our shoes, it never felt like, I don't know, it didn't feel like heavy-handed or like you're on his side the whole time. Right. Even as if you can't fully relate to his experience, you are on his side the whole time. And I think in another director's hands or another actor's hands, maybe you don't feel that way, you know? Yeah. Maybe you're kind of like, oh, these guys are just kind of, they're being, you know, overreacting, or this isn't what it's really like. But you sympathize with them the whole time.
You really feel like you're cheering for them the whole movie.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't, and then like you maybe subtly realize, or I hope like other people watching this will subtly realize, like, oh, okay. You hear about this stuff in the media, you're like, oh, that's just being overblown or whatever. Maybe it's not that big a deal. And you're like, oh, okay. Maybe this experience is real and there's validity to what you know people are saying, and maybe I should take it more seriously, you know?
The character that's supposedly not racist in the movie, the one white guy who may not be racist, which is Stephen Root, who plays the blind art dealer, I thought he is an interesting character because he may not be racist, but he was elitist. He was like, I'll take your body. I don't care what color it is. I deserve it. And so even when Chris lets down his guard and is like, finally, a guy he says everyone else here is ignorant and they're, you know, and then it turns out he's just as evil, if not more, because he is willing to take Chris's body.
It's like objectification. It's like they're looking at them for their bodies and not their hearts and their minds. And and it was really interesting. The you know, the person, the landscaper running at night. You realize like, oh, he's running because he's using his body that he never had, because when he was in the race Olympics. When he was younger in the Olympics, he got beat by an African American and or. Black person of some country. Yeah, and it was just like, wow, it's just crazy to think like that, you know, that is a thing. It's like black is the new cool. And that was sort of a theme of the movie, was like all these people at the party, you know, all the people at the auction, and it's really similar to a slave auction.
Slave auction, yeah, that's what I meant. There was so much similarities to the past that you kind of learn in a textbook. Like, oh, that was then, but how is it not different from what we do even now in sports, for instance? Yeah. You know, I mean, that's like an auction right there with the like picking of and you're picked for your body and your your skill, and everybody, you know, puts them on their fantasy football team or whatever. And I never been into that because I just feel like it's objectification so much. And so I guess that's again where some of my anger comes from. I think the saving grace of the movie for me, as a person who doesn't like to feel this way when I am watching something, this anger, was the friend character.
Yeah.
The comic
he was fantastic.
Comic relief.
Yeah.
So funny.
He was me. I feel like that was like what I would do in that situation.
Yeah.
He was very, you know, you could relate to him.
I feel like you'd do the same thing. Yeah. you would figure it out. Yeah. You would use your TSMFA skills to solve the problem.
I mean, he goes to the police and he tries to convince them, and they don't believe him, and it's just
that
really relate to him.
Is so
it was
awesome.
important. Like I could almost see them saying, we could probably take this part of the you know, we could take the scene out maybe. Yeah. You know, because it was a little bit longer than maybe it needed to be, but it did need to be that long.
Yeah.
And it was unpredictable.
Didn't know what was going through the police officers'
Right. It was great. Your brain is going, oh, and here's where the police step in and they follow up on some investigation and blah, blah, blah. And then it goes completely differently. It was just for the comedic. And Jordan Peele's a pro at this. I mean, he's been with Key and Peele for years making awesome shows where they have 4 minutes to make you laugh, right? Yeah. They've got to get that laugh out. And so he knows how to make each scene work and the arc. So just as you're feeling the most terror, we'd leap to a funny scene where you're just like, and you get kind of a palate cleanser, right? So that you can start fresh at the bottom and then work your way back up.
Going back to the slavery point and going back to what you were saying, Jen, with you know, sort of this being a really smart film, is something I found interesting was the scene at the end where he's in the basement, you know, and earlier when the dad was talking about how there's black mold in the basement.
Oh, yeah.
When he's in that scene and he's grabbing onto the couch and it's sort of paralleling the moment where he was stuck, you know, when watching the TV when his mother was being on a hit and run. So something interesting about that is when he's holding on, he's you know, picking the cotton out of the chairs to put it in his ears so that he can stay alive and not be hypnotized. And the really interesting thing is, like, he's picking cotton to survive.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
It's familiar?
A lot of really subtle.
Nice
kind of
job.
like,
Oh my God.
Like, that's just one of the things that hit home for me in that movie was like, it's so smart on so many levels.
So
and
many
you
layers.
can't, you don't have to watch it once to notice these things. You have to watch it like 4 times, I've seen it like once, and then I watched it again really quickly to remember it, but it's just such a smart movie, and I would see it like over and over again if I could.
Yeah,
I have a question though.
Yeah.
If this, hopefully this is being seen by the masses, right?
It did
It did
really well.
very
when it was
well.
out.
So the question
Surprised
is,
Very well.
if you are a racist person and you see this movie, do you get something subtly that changes your perspective?
I wonder.
Or do you just go, oh, that was awesome, and then that's that?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of tough to say. I think it depends on the person, really.
Racist, comment below.
Yes. All the racist fans. No, but I think anyone who's like thoughtful enough and can like view things in an analytical way should be able to, empathize and pick up on this stuff.
It's so smart though. It's hard to believe that you wouldn't be able to take even the slightest bit away from it, because it's not a typical horror film.
No.
Well, Keenan, did he make it as a horror film, or did he
Jordan.
make it as, yes, did he make it as a horror film, or did he make it as a social?
He called it a social thriller. So
I think it's a good mix of both.
From what I understand, he's a big horror buff. I guess
Yeah.
like he was really inspired by like Rosemary's Baby and Stepford Wives and movies like this for inspiration for this movie. So he's definitely like what's the word? Maybe like an auteur of the genre for sure. But I think he was also has obviously had something to say too. It's not just for pure horror's sake.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's so artistic in so many ways, and it just felt like a statement of sorts. And like, I think that this is something new and fresh that I have not seen. One of the best movies I've seen in general, not even for the horror aspect,
yeah.
because I don't even like horror movies. Like, this was just a good movie, and I thought it was very unique in every way. Like we were talking about the brain transplants at the end. It's like that is so not like realistic, but it's just, it stands for something, and it creates an interesting twist on the story that keeps you engaged, but also has very real like effects to what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan said he wanted to keep the audience titillated. He wanted to keep them entertained, and he said that he thinks there's a big parallel between comedy and horror.
Yeah.
In comedy, you're always trying for the laugh. In horror, you're always trying for the scare. And so it kind of put the two of them together here, and he kept doing it. Every scene, he got the laugh when he wanted, he got the scare when he wanted.
Yeah.
And that's what I think we loved as an audience. Let's talk about the brother, Jeremy, played by Caleb Landry Jones, who hasn't really been in a lot. I was looking up his IMDb page, and he's been in a lot of little stuff, but I feel like his career is about to take off because he did his part perfectly in this movie. He came in at a moment where you're on to Georgina, right? It's just as Georgina has screwed up pouring, and you're like, wait a minute, what's up with Georgina?
Yeah.
And then he comes into the scene and grabs your attention for the next 10 minutes, where he plays this drunk brother who's got something going on and you don't know what, but he does it brilliantly.
He's a great character.
And you're just like, okay, so maybe he's the weird one here. Like maybe it's going to be that he's the killer or something. Like you're off on a different tangent. But every scene, he played it perfectly. Obviously, this brother is raised to have to go get people and bring them to his family, so he's crazy. But you believe all of his weird quirks, and he doesn't seem to push it over the top. He's just like, even when he's going to retrieve the body in the wheelchair, he's just kind of like, this is what I do.
Didn't think about it.
That's my job. I don't know. I thought I did a great
Although
job.
I think that
so, too.
in the very, very first scene where this character, who looks like a monster, comes and grabs this guy off the street. I'm waiting for that character, right? I'm waiting for the Freddy character to come.
The monster.
And in the back of my mind, I'm waiting for that. And yet it never really happens in the same way.
Right.
Because
So
it was
kinda
the whole
throws you
party
off.
was the monster. The whole party of people.
Yeah.
Right.
Everyone there was the monster.
Oh, for
it was the
sure.
collective group, and they were all wearing red. If you look back at the movie again, everyone in that party was wearing red, and Chris was the only one wearing blue.
Interesting.
And I think that that's sort of like puts them all they kind of unifies all the racist older people in the movie as the monster.
As they're leaving the party and all the white people are going home, one of them like says to Chris, like, "It was nice to meet you," and you feel that he's genuine. You feel that he's like he was genuinely glad to meet him, showing this dichotomy of these white people who can one minute be like, "Oh, I'm going to take his body," and then when they don't get that chance, they're like, "Oh, good to meet you. Wait for my next chance." Like, that's how evil they are. They weren't like, "Oh, get out of here." They were just, they kind of have this weird thing, which I think a lot of people do, which is that like,
it's not so black and white. It's like this.
Well, again, I go back to a textbook where they'll try to be teaching about slavery to fifth graders, and they'll say, well, some of the white masters were kind to their slaves, and that's supposed to make you feel better, like, oh, they were kind, and it's just like,
yeah, hopefully my family is one of those kind families.
Yes,
they
exactly.
didn't beat them.
Right,
Right.
right.
They still are slaves for the rest of their lives. So.
It's crazy.
The milk scene. So near the end of the film, she's sitting listening to Dirty Dancing on her headphones and eating her Fruit Loops with the milk. That was put into the movie, I guess, just like a week before shooting. They just added that scene, and I think from what I've heard in theaters, it's like one of the biggest laughs of the film, because it just shows how she just switched, and how she just became,
cold.
When she's on the phone with Chris's friend.
Oh my God! And her face doesn't change, but her voice
is
does.
like, "Oh no, what happened to Chris?" And it's just like, wow, she's playing this so perfectly.
Yeah.
And to try to get him to be the next target.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
And it was almost like feeling him out, because, she didn't have to go to him next, but it was like, but if he doesn't really care about his friend, he can be our next target.
Right. Yeah, there was these two avenues that the family was taking to get new victims. One was to send Jeremy out and, randomly grab someone. The other one was to do the honeypot method and, go selectively get someone.
Yeah. It's very scary, very scary.
And then what about her outfit at the end?
The Freddy Krueger outfit?
Oh, yeah. So she's wearing a white hunter's outfit at the end, right? The white starched shirt. And
like
those,
South African hunting.
South African pants. I don't know what those pants are called. The hunting pants.
Yeah.
And then she's got the rifle, and she's going out for the hunt.
Very interesting.
This movie works on every level.
Yeah.
Really.
There's just so many
I don't
different.
think there's any real weak part to this movie.
No.
And even like I said, even the little elements that maybe felt like a little tropey, they play with it in such like an interesting way that you don't care that that it's still a little bit tropey. It's like, but like this is such an interesting take on that trope that you're not like, oh great, here we go with this thing again.
Yeah.
I don't know.
At the end, I was in my seat. I was jumping out of my seat. I was like, go! And I've never done that at the theater. I'm like, whoa. And it was so like your heart was just beating, and it was just insane. And then even at the very, very end, when the landscaper finally breaks free of the trance because the flash, he is just so messed up from this whole experience. He's been in the sunken place for probably years now. And imagine that, just being in the sunken place for years. He's just, I can't live anymore. And he shoots himself. And it's just, in a way, I think he was just wanted to end it all, just get that man out of his head and sort of take control of his body one last time. And I think it's just, that was really powerful for me, because it sort of speaks to, being a slave. And it's like, once you've been a slave for so long, it's like, where is your life at that point?
Right.
It's like, is it worth taking control again?
And in just minutes later, he would be back as the grandfather if he didn't kill himself.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So in a way, he was kind of killing the grandfather.
Yeah.
So, and just the escape scene at the end was so good. I thought it was amazing, so satisfying. That movie ended. I was just,
The funniest
like,
laugh
so
in the funniest line in the movie is probably the last line, which is
what does he say?
He says, I have to make sure I don't swear in there. I'm TSMFA. We handle shit. That's what we do. Consider the situation handled.
Now, was that at the end when he arrived in the car?
Yeah, he gets out.
And I love there's just this long silence. He's like, I told you not to go in there.
And
he's like, I told you so.
And I almost wonder what happens next.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like we were talking about, they're going to find this eventually and see what happened here. And it's like, who's going to believe them?
Right.
Well, and the house is like going up in flames as they drive off.
Which shows that
would
they
kill
had.
a lot of the evidence.
That's right, and all you would see left was a black man and black woman and a dead white woman. Like you'd probably just be like, oh,
Yeah.
that happened.
So it's really interesting. I heard that Jordan Peele is making other horror movies, so I'm really excited to see where those go and what they include. And I'm excited.
Yeah, his career is wide open now. I mean, having made, so we were talking about how much money this made. They shot this for $5 million.
Yep.
They made $33 million in the first weekend in February, and now they're up to, as at the beginning of this month, they made $175 million. I heard it was $250 million as of today.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, so
Unbelievable.
Hollywood is open to him.
Right, for like a little horror movie, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
I want more Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
I want more Key and Peele too. That's a good show.
All right, so it's
Reviews.
time to rate. As we all know, we rate out of 5, and it doesn't have to be 5 stars, ladies and gentlemen. It can be anything that your heart desires. So let's start with Brent here and see if he's ready to.
Brent wasn't thinking about this.
Yeah, I caught you off guard.
You did. I think I'm going to go 5 bowls of Fruit Loops.
Oh,
That was mine. Dang it.
very good.
This movie is just brilliant. I can't find any fault in this movie. Like, I love everything about it. I want to watch it again. Everyone who I talk to about this movie, I tell them, you have to go watch this movie. Go stop everything you're doing. It's my favorite movie of this year so far. It works on every level. It's scary, it's funny, it's thought-provoking, and the performances are all amazing across the board. I don't think there's one weak link in the entire movie. 5 out of 5 bowls of Fruit Loops.
Wow, that's a high score. I'm gonna have to match that and go with 5 out of 5 Running Men at Night.
Nice.
Because I think that it was just such a good movie in every level, and I've never left a theater and thought about a movie for so long after seeing it that I did with this, and that's usually what I go by, is how long I have to think about the movie after seeing it, and I thought about it for a long time, and I'm still thinking about it. So 5 out of 5 Running Men at Night.
Can't wait to see how we do that.
They'll probably be running at the screen.
I definitely agree. It was 5 out of 5 bocce balls for me.
Nice.
Wow.
One of the best uses of bocce balls.
That was satisfying. I gotta
Yeah,
say.
I mean, acting-wise, just fantastic. I went in thinking that was going to be the lowest part of the movie was the acting, but it was just perfectly written, directed, acted, everything I love in a movie, the tension, the timing. You could feel that he was a comedic master in the way that he played out each scene. There was no throwaway scenes in the movie. I loved it from beginning to end.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I'm gonna have to give it 5 creepy cups of tea.
You will like the show.
Yeah, the multiple layers that keep hitting you once you've stopped watching the movie is just amazing. And I'm not a fan of these kinds of movies because I'm so highly stressed during them. It's not an enjoying watch, but honestly, after the movie, I felt good about watching the movie.
So at the end, I say also rated 5 out of 5, but 5 out of 5 heroes, which is the TSA.
Wow.
TSA would be a hero. 5 out of 5 TSA agents. Woo!
That's a first.
Wow, that is a first.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Wow.
Well, thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments or thoughts, please post them below in the comments and give us some ideas for films or TV shows you'd like us to review. Thank you so much for watching Now You Know's movie show on Get Out. Get out of here.
Yeah. Action. I need to go to Marshall's. Oh wait, I did go to Marshall's and all the shirts were like $50.
What? No, you're looking
You
at
went to the wrong
tag.
Marshall's.
I was
You're looking at the wrong tag.
Oh, I think I went to the
They keep the original price on, and then they have here's what we're selling.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
It'd be like $50, but then we're selling it for $12. You're like,
Right.
score.
Should have got a turtle
Into
shirt.
Yeah,
buying
it's a
more stuff,
psychological
but-
experience.
Yeah, it's totally.
Should've got-
into buying more stuff.
Should have got my turtle shirts, man.
Reviewing Marshall.
Should have got my turtle shirts.
We're all going to Marshall's after the show.
Okay.
So it's sponsored
I
by
might.
Marshalls.
I might.
What are you gonna do after you watch Get Out?
I'm gonna get out and go to Marshall. Sponsored by Marshall.
I was gonna say Target. Sponsored by.
Yes.